First, nothing to worry about here is the Green Left's reaction to the news today that Australia's largest coal-fired power station will be shut down in just 3 years' time, 7 years earlier than the company that owns it, Origin Energy, told us previously. This is the Yeraring plant just outside Newcastle in New South Wales. And it's happening at a time when the UK and Europe are showing us what happens when there's an energy crisis, having been recently plunged into blackouts, brownouts and involuntary power rationing because of an over-reliance on unreliable renewable energy, as well as Russia's unwillingness to sell them more gas. The green boosters and investors, they'll keep telling you how cheap wind and solar power has become. And thanks to cheap solar panels and windmills, nearly all imported from China, of course, and awash with subsidies, it is cheap. But only when the wind is blowing and the sun is shining. The trouble is we need power 24/7 and our heavy industries need it at scale. Eliminating coal, which today is still almost 70% of our power generation, without alternative baseload power, is an act of economic self-harm. Even Matt Keane, the New South Wales Energy Minister and Treasurer too, who's a non-stop advocate for renewables, seemed very much on the back foot today with this decision that will remove 20% of his state's power supply at a stroke.
Let me say that this was not the New South Wales government's decision. Well, Origin approached me about the possibility of today's decision a number of months ago. We've been engaging constructively with Origin. Obviously, I would have liked this power station to have continued running to the end of its life. I want all our power stations to run to the end of their lives, giving us enough time to replace that capacity.
Really, Matt Keane? When it's your policies that have been a key driver in making coal and gas uneconomic in New South Wales, causing these companies driven by profit to vacate the market, slash jobs, and now you're scrambling to assure voters that you've got a plan when clearly this is an unmitigated mess. Origin Energy, well, they're clearly not scared of the New South Wales Treasurer, are they? By bringing forward their decision to walk away from the state's largest power station 7 years earlier than planned, they're looking after their bottom line. Like all big companies, they just want to make a profit. And taking out Yeraring will drive up power prices for Origin consumers. Plus it'll buy them green bragging rights while leaving the government to carry the can on the issue of grid reliability. Over the past few years, power in this country has become less affordable and less reliable, basically because we run our power system to reduce emissions rather than produce power 24/7. Wholesale power prices are up 80% in real terms since we started the move to renewables, essentially because consumer subsidies for wind and solar, plus massive variability in price as the wind varies and the sun moves in and out of the clouds, well, they've wrecked the economics of coal and gas-fired power. Here is Keane again today trying to spin his way out of any responsibility for this mess.
We're seeing investors moving away from carbon or coal-fired power stations. We're seeing shareholders won't invest in them. We're seeing economic pressures. And Origin in their statement today said that it had nothing to do with the New South Wales government and it had everything to do with the economic pressures that they're facing in this climate.
How stupid does this bloke think we are? It's not the market that's driving the move to renewables. It's the distortions that government policy has injected into the market. Plus the green activists who turn up to AGMs and bully timid public companies into getting out of coal, combined with the weight of union super funds that use their institutional shareholder clout to drive Labor Party thinking into Australia's corporate boardrooms. If coal really is uneconomic, why is our thermal coal exports at record levels? And why is China, which never lets environmental sensitivity get in the way of economic growth, massively expanding its coal fleet? Wholesale power prices almost doubled in Victoria after the Hazelwood power station exited the system in 2017. After losing its big coal-fired generator in South Australia, well, they suffered a statewide blackout in 2016 because the wind turbines had to be shut down and the interconnector with Victoria failed during a storm. There's now a Tesla battery in South Australia, but it can power the state for less than 10 minutes. Today, the New South Wales government tried to reassure people with talk of a giant battery to take your earrings place. Now, good luck with that. Just ask those living in Adelaide. The basic problem here is the emissions obsession to which nearly all governments in this country have now succumbed. In countries like ours, there's been a near universal pretense that it's possible to have the best of all worlds. Cheap power plus lots and lots of jobs and low emissions. In fact, we can have lower emissions, but with more and more expensive power and fewer jobs, especially jobs in heavy industry. Or we can lose our emissions obsession and have cheaper power and more jobs. The Morrison government is as guilty as anyone here today, criticising the closure of your earring while running ads on this network, boasting about getting rid of coal as a way to get down to net zero. Of course, get there with nothing yet invented to replace coal and gas. And no willingness, even now in an election, to have a discussion about nuclear. If China really is a threat that they keep telling us it is, and I believe it is, it won't be much of a fight, will it? If we can't keep the lights on, let alone make the steel needed to defend ourselves.